Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mountain West Insider Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. Goodman, we did not get a five-bid Mountain West, unfortunately. It turns out that Colorado State playing Boise State in the Mountain West Tournament Championship game ended up being a play-in game for the NCAA Tournament. Boise was, I believe, the fourth team out of the field, but we did get a four-bid Mountain West. Colorado State's a 12 seed. San Diego State is playing in the playing game, which all things considered is not the worst spot for them to be in here. They think they got a chance to make a run. New Mexico is a 10 seed and drew Marquette in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and Utah State is also a 10 seed. They are playing UCLA in the first round of the dance. Let's start with San Diego State because they're going to be the first team playing from the Mountain West Conference. They get North Carolina, which, there's that's about as high profile of a matchup as you could have gotten when you head to Dayton. The big news there, I believe Brian Dutcher told you Mugungawath is expected to play. He's one of the best shot blockers in college basketball, as Aztec fans know. And he will be a game changer against the North Carolina team that is not exactly known, Jeff, for their interior prowess.
They're not. I mean, it's actually a really good matchup with Magoon back because, the one thing Carolina's been lacking and that we've talked about all season long is their Achilles heel is their front court. Their back court, we know they got R.J. Davis, but he's had way too much on his plate this year because they missed out on guys in the portal. They have, Jalen Withers, Van Allen Lubin, Jalen Washington, none of which have stepped up and been Armando Bacot or anything close to it. So San Diego State will have an advantage on the interior. The question is, can they slow R.J. Davis and Ian Jackson down on the perimeter? And Ian Jackson, for those that probably haven't been following as much, is a talented freshman that had a stretch of about a month where he went nuts. And he's come down to earth here over the last month or so of the season. But he can get hot. He can get hot quick. They're small guards. That's what Carolina has as well. So you've got to take advantage of their lack of length if you're Brian Dutcher and San Diego State.
Yeah, I think all things considered, this is about as good of a matchup as you could have asked for in this situation if you're San Diego State, because it's not like North Carolina is going to be able to exploit some of the issues that San Diego State has this season. Specifically, they're not a team that forces turnover. San Diego State has been a little bit turnover prone, and they're not a team that gets the offensive glass. San Diego State has not been the greatest offensive rebounding team on the planet. And I think with Mugungawath there and the way that the Aztecs can get out and guard on the perimeter, this is something where I think San Diego State wins this game. And I think they win this game in relatively comfortable fashion.
Yeah, I mean, all the smoke that Carolina took for being included in the field, you wonder how much motivation that is. Does it really matter at the end of the day? Because they're 1-12 in quad one games.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't really beaten anybody other than UCLA. And that was back in December all season, worth anything. Now, the ACC has been terrible this year, really down. So the level of competition hasn't been great. I would agree with you. I think San Diego State wins this game. Brian Dutcher's done pretty well, and the Aztecs have done well in the NCAA tournament lately.
Yep. They might be putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, but if they do win, they draw Ole Miss in the second round with a potential matchup with Iowa State and Lipscomb in the second round of the tournament. Just real quick on Iowa State, they are missing Keyshawn Gilbert, who is probably their second best guard, maybe their third best guard, but a really important piece for them. And he will not be playing in the NCAA tournament with, I believe it's a groin injury. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Jeff.
Yep, that's right.
And then Ole Miss, that will be something of a tough matchup if they're able to get there, just because it's Chris Beard and the way that they defend, that no middle defense. It's not the easiest matchup in the world. They are battle tested. They're coming through the SEC, and they'll be able. They don't turn the ball over, right? They are one of these programs that has really good guard play and does not turn the ball over. So that'll be an interesting matchup if it does happen, kind of strength on strength. But it's not like Ole Miss is a team that is unbeatable. They lost 11 games this season, so San Diego State will have a puncher's chance.
And again, they have the size advantage in both of those. They'll have the size advantage, and that's where getting back healthy will be huge for them in more than one way.
Yep. All right, let's get to Colorado State, because Colorado State, I think, is the most interesting team from the Mountain West in this NCAA tournament. They have now won 10 games in a row. Since a loss to New Mexico at home on December 28th, they are now 18-3. They've won 18 of their last 21 games. Uh,
Insane.
Dominique Clifford has turned into one of the best players in college. I think I feel comfortable saying that. One of the
But he
best players in
was.
college
I
basketball.
feel like he was, but then when they started winning, we appreciated him differently. But man, his
It,
production all
even
season has been
even
incredible.
then, even then, he took a step forward. Like, we talked about this when we had him on the pod.
Right.
We talked about this, Jeff, and he
Yeah.
was one of two guys in the country that was averaging 17 points, 10 boards, and 3 assists. The other one was Janai Broom. Um, and since then, all he's done in the last 10 games is average 22 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, while shooting 55% from the floor and 55% from three. That is ridiculous. Okay.
Yes, it is.
That is ridiculous.
That it
And
is.
I mean, it's neither here nor there, but I think he's going to end up being a first round draft pick. And if they get hot here in the dance, I think he's got a chance to turn himself into a lottery pick. I said this last night to you on After Dark. I think if there's one guy that has the opportunity to really, really boost his draft stock here on a national scale, it is Nick Cleary. He's figured out how to shoot. Like, he's turned into an unreal. He's had an unreal season. And they draw Memphis in the first round, and Memphis is going to be without. The expectation is there without Tyrese Hunter. I don't think that that Penny's come out and said anything officially, but it does not seem like Tyrese Hunter is in a place where he's going to be able to play in that first round matchup. So, what can Colorado State fans expect out of Memphis?
They're obviously they were guard heavy all year, but without Tyrese Hunter, they're a different team. I mean, they just are. Tyrese Hunter's an elite defender who's been a better shooter all season long. And what worked for them was their guard trio together. I mean, that's kind of why they were so good, right? PJ Haggerty has been terrific transferring over this year. Penny Hardaway's kind of hit lightning in a bottle with these guards. But without Hunter, they're not the same team. And if you're Colorado State and you're Nico Medved, you're just saying, like, all right, I need Jalen Lake, I need some of these other guys that have been good, but they're going to have to give me something more. Somebody else is going to have to be like, the Robin here in this game, because what Memphis is going to do is athletically they're going to be able to match up with Nick. And it's going to be hard for him. In this matchup, they're going to have time to prepare. They're going to put everything they can into slow him down and saying, like, hey, let somebody else beat us. Let somebody else beat us. And that's where, to me, if you're Nico, you're saying, like, we got to get more production from some of these other guys that have been a little inconsistent lately, right? I mean, Jalen Lake, like, has to be, what do you have, 5 points in the championship game against Boise? He had 3 against Nevada. He can't do that. He's got to be in double figures. He has to be.
Yep. Where they've taken their real leap, other than Neek, is been on the defensive end of the floor, and that's to me, that's where they win this game against Memphis. You have to find a way to slow down PJ Haggerty. Without Tyrese Hunter, if you can keep PJ Haggerty from going off, then you're gonna have a very real chance to beat them. Memphis is a weird team too, right? Like, they're one of these teams where their metrics, everyone expected them to be closer to like the 7-8 seed line because of where their metrics are in terms of KenPom and in terms of Torvik. But if you look at what they've actually accomplished, their wins, they have a pretty impressive resume. They beat UConn, they beat Michigan State, they had some really good wins early on. They beat Ole Miss, they had some good wins early on this season. And they're one of these teams where they played in the American and they just won every game by like 1 or 2 points, something like that, right? And that's not something that's going to be great for your predictive metrics, but they got ranked, they got seeded as a 5 seed because of what
Yeah.
they've accomplished this season. So you combine all that with Tyrese Hunter being there, and they're Colorado State's favored in this game. They are a 12 seed, and they were favored over Memphis. In this
Crazy.
matchup.
But a lot of that is Tyrese Hunter being hurt. A lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it is, but it's still. I think even Kempom has Colorado State winning this game, and that's not just Tyrese Hunter being out. I think you're right though. I think it is the guard play. It is Jalen Lake. It is Kyan Evans. It is being able to deal with them. And the other part of it is uh, Memphis in the last probably 6 weeks has seen Dane Danger turn into um, the danger zone, right? And if you got to be able to slow, you can't let him be a weapon in the post. You can't let him be a guy that's going to go out there and get 18 and 15 because if he is, that kind of changes who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. No, I mean, Memphis is dangerous. Their non-conference slate was incredible this year. So they've shown the ability to beat, almost anybody, but they've also been playing in a league that's a one bid league all year.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're going to have to go back up, a level in competition. They haven't seen anybody like Colorado State, since back in December.
Yeah, yeah, especially not the way they're playing right now.
Yeah.
Colorado State has been the eighth best team in the country since Valentine's Day, according to Bart Torvik. All right, on the other side of the bracket, over in the Midwest region, Utah State draws UCLA in the first round, and Utah State. This is a weird one for me, Goodman, because I was all in on them early on in the year. And I think what happened on the stretch, they lost three of their last six heading into the Mountain West tournament and four of their last eight overall after losing to Colorado State in the semifinals of the Mountain West tournament. And I think what kind of happened was teams figured out what that zone, how to beat that zone. They play this for Mountain West fans will know this. For anyone that's not a Mountain West fan, they play this like 1-1-3. Uh, it's kind of like a matchup zone. I don't even really know. I would have to ask Jared to define what it actually is. But they play this zone, and it's different than what most teams run when they play zone. And I think it took a while for opponents to kind of figure out what was going on with that zone. And once they did, I think it kind of caught up with them a little bit. Now, to be fair, the three losses that they took after Valentine's Day at New Mexico, no shame in that. At Boise State, no shame in that. And at Colorado State, no shame in that. They played five of their last seven games in the regular season against teams that were in the top four of the Mountain West. So, what do you make of Utah State? They got two guys that can go win you a game, Mason Falslev and
Yeah.
Ian Martinez, but they have not been playing great late in the season.
Yeah, but I mean, again, they got a winnable game here. It's not like UCLA's been overpowering this season. Utah State's the one team that you'd be like, okay, you know what? I'm not sure if I trust them as much. You trust the program, but they need Martinez to be better than he was in the championship game against Colorado State. He's got to be a dude in this game. He's got to, and they got to match UCLA's toughness. That's the other thing that's going to be key in this one. We know what Mick Cronin's teams are known for. They're not super talented either, but they're deep. So I think Utah State, this is kind of a pick 'em game for me as much as anything. And these 7-10 games, let's be honest, there's minimal disparity between these teams. I mean, if you look at it and how it shakes out, my guess is it's pretty close to even when you're looking at the 7-10 games and who wins those games. So Ian Martinez got to be really good. And Mason Falsov, he's also. I mean, those two have to step up in this one for Utah State to have a chance to advance. And but any way you cut it, listen. If I had told you that Utah State would get in the NCAA tournament again this year, you would have taken it in a heartbeat.
All right, let's head over to the South region, Jeff, where we have a really interesting matchup between Marquette and New Mexico. Two of the best guards in college basketball will be facing off, although I don't think that they will be guarding each other. Donovan Dent, Cam Jones, but Donovan is going to have to deal with a young man by the name of Stevie Mitchell, who they call Off Night in the Big East.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best defenders in the country, period. And Cam Jones is one of the best players in the country. And early on in the season, we had his Cooper Flag, Janai Broom, and Cam Jones. Those were the three favorites for National Player of the Year. And the issue with Cam Jones, I thought, was he wore down. The supporting cast just wasn't quite good enough. And Marquette's really fallen off. So really since what? The new year almost? Early January,
February. Since
February.
February,
Yeah.
they've lost 7 of their last 12 games.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well. But I will say this: when those dudes get after it and they play hard, especially in the defensive end, they are a menace. They're an absolute menace, and they can disrupt you so quickly. And they just haven't played like that in a while. You know, they've kind of lost their mojo a little bit. Um, and you got obviously New Mexico, and that 1-2 punch of Donovan Dent and Nelly Jr. Joseph. And the big thing is Marquette doesn't have a lot of size up front that you trust. They just don't. They don't have a lot of toughness up. Their toughness is in the perimeter.
Yep. The key to this game is going to be how New Mexico is able to establish Nelly Jr. Joseph. That's where you can beat Marquette. That's where you can get at him is getting the ball in the post, getting paint touches, letting him get to the offensive glass, letting him kind of work in and around the paint because he is as big and as physical as anybody that Marquette has seen in the Big East, anyone that Marquette is going to have to deal with this season. And the other thing that I'll note is that while um, while Donovan Dent's going to have to deal with Stevie Mitchell, Cam Jones is going to have to deal with Drew Washington. So the idea that it's Donovan Dent against Cam Jones kind of stinks because they're probably not going to guard each other. But this we could end up seeing this be something where it's a shootout between those two. One other thing that I'll add: David Joplin is something of an X factor for this Marquette team. When he gets going, when he plays well offensively, it makes Marquette a different basketball team. And keeping him in check and keeping him from finding a way to get to 20 points, make a couple threes, that is going to be a big, big difference maker for New Mexico.
Yeah, and I think some of the other guys for New Mexico, just in case Donovan Dent does have an off night from Stevie Mitchell,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to need a Mustafa Anzil or True Washington, those guys to be able to give them a little bit more. Um, they're heavily reliant on five guys. New Mexico, let's face it, that's kind of who they've been lately. So that's not Marquette. Marquette goes a little bit deeper. They play fast. They try to get you kind of off your game and really attack you with the pressure. So the question is, will they have enough left in the tank if you're New Mexico at the end of the game too?
Last thing that I'll add, and I haven't really heard anybody discuss this, but do you know who coaches New Mexico?
Yeah, Richard Pitino. Yes, yes, I
Who's his
do.
dad?
Rick Pitino,
Where's his dad coach?
St. John's.
Do you know that in this stretch where Marquette has lost 7 of their last 12, 3 of those losses for Marquette were to
St. John's.
twice in the last week Marquette played.
So do you think they talked? Are you telling me that father and son might have had a little scouting session here?
My guess is that not only has Richard Pitino seen plenty of Marquette because of who his dad is, but they literally just played on Friday night in the semifinals of the Big East tournament, where Marquette jumped out to a lead. St. John's outscored them by 31 over the last 32 minutes of that game, and Zuby Ejiofor had 33 points and 9 rebounds. And Zuby Ejiofor, Nelly Jr. Joseph, um, can do some of the same things when it comes to the physicality in the paint. And I think that is an edge that Richard Pitino will have. So
So do you
that's just
think instead of Richard Pitino having his assistants do the scout, that's what happens before a game? You pick an assistant, they scout the teams. Instead, do you think Richard was just like, "Hey, Dad, can you do the scout for us? I'm going to zoom you in, and you're going to talk to the team. Instead of me talking to the team, you can talk to our team."
I would you be shocked if Rick Pitino zoomed in and talked
No,
to
no,
Marquette
I
to
wouldn't.
help his son get a win here?
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably
I
not.
think I'm not even kidding. I think that probably at the very minimum they were on the phone for an hour after
With the
on Selection
coaches.
Sunday.
No,
Yeah,
he might have zoomed in with like the other coaches. I don't think
yeah.
he zoomed in with the team, but I could see Rick Pitino being on a Zoom yesterday, um, and talking to the rest of the staff about the game plan.
Yeah, so that's certainly an advantage for New Mexico. I think New Mexico wins this game. I have San Diego State beating North Carolina.
Yep.
I have in my bracket, I have New Mexico beating Marquette, and I have Colorado State beating Memphis. I think UCLA picks off Utah State. I just think the Utah State has kind of been struggling and is limping into the tournament a little bit. But I have three wins for the Mountain West in the first round of the dance. Colorado State, if they beat Memphis, looks like they're likely going to draw Maryland. I think that's a really difficult matchup with how well the Crab Five has been playing. I would have Ole Miss beating San Diego State in the first round, and then New Mexico drawing Michigan State. This just feels like too much of a Tom Izzo team. So let me put it to you like this: of any of the four Mountain West teams that are in the NCAA tournament, who is the most likely to be able to find themselves in the second weekend?
Uh boy. All right, let me get my glasses on here again so I can look forward here at this point. So again, we've got Colorado State, Memphis, and I like Maryland a lot. So I think that is going to be a tough game because Maryland's got five dudes that can all go. New Mexico gets Marquette and then Michigan State. Then you got on the other side we have Utah State. I don't I don't love them, and then San Diego State. I guess, boy, it's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm going to go San Diego State to win three. I'm going to go San Diego State to win three there, just because of what they've done, their culture. I trust. I obviously trust Dutch and his guys, and getting the big boy back. I think that's a difference maker.
Yep. Yep, I tend to agree. All right, listen, Goodman. This has been the Mountain West Insider podcast. We will hopefully be back next week with a breakdown of one of these Mountain West teams heading into the Sweet 16, the second round of the NCAA tournament. It's been a fantastic season out there in the Mountain West, and I think it's been fun to watch. This podcast is always fun to do, and hopefully we have at least one more.